And I hope you at home have a good weekend too, because I'm sure you deserve it too, I can tell. But before we get there, I have to tell you, we do have kind of a doozy of a show tonight, including some of the weirdest news stories we have covered in quite some time. We're going to start tonight in New York State, where this is the duly elected Attorney General of the state. Her name is Letitia James, Tish James. She was first elected to the Attorney General job this past November, won by a huge margin. She's very popular in the state. She is the first woman to ever be elected Attorney General of the state of New York. She is the first African-American to ever serve as Attorney General in the state of New York. She is the first African-American woman to ever be elected to statewide office of any kind in New York. And so Tish James is a big deal in New York. She's a very high-profile public official in the state of New York. She's also, I think, likely to end up being a pretty high-profile national figure if her career continues the way it is going thus far. But today, Tish James ended up in the headlines for a somewhat unusual reason, which is that today she was sued. She didn't sue somebody or bring a case against somebody. She herself was sued by the N.R.A. The N.R.A., this sort of legendarily powerful right-wing pro-gun advocacy group. If you have been following news about the N.R.A. recently at all, you know that they are embroiled in all sorts of legal drama right now. I mean, the New York Attorney General, Tish James, is not the only entity that has issued subpoenas to the N.R.A. and its constituent parts over the last few months. The New York State investigation that Tish James is leading, though, I think is particularly threatening to the group because New York State happens to be where the N.R.A. is chartered as a nonprofit organization. Back in April, Letitia James opened an investigation into allegations of self-dealing at the N.R.A., meaning the nonprofit being illegally operated for the benefit of its employees or its board members instead of for its nonprofit purpose. I mean, that investigation doesn't just cover potentially criminal malfeasance by the group and its members or its executives. That investigation theoretically could put the nonprofit status of the N.R.A. at risk. And that might sound like a technical thing, but that could technically put the ongoing existence of the N.R.A. at risk. Well, within the last few weeks, Tish James widened her investigation, and she issued subpoenas to more than 90 people who are either on the N.R.A.'s board of directors right now or they have been in the past. And that is apparently what led to the N.R.A. suing Tish James today. And it's interesting. The reason they're suing her is because the N.R.A. is apparently quite freaked out about the prospect of what Tish James might hear from one of the people she has subpoenaed. Again, she's issued more than 90 subpoenas. But what the N.R.A. is suing her about, what they are freaked out about, is the one of those subpoenas she sent to Oliver North. Yes, that Oliver North, the felon from the Iran-Contra scandal. He's one of the people who's gotten a Tish James subpoena. The N.R.A. is now suing Attorney General Tish James today, specifically because they insist that they want their own attorneys present and in the room when Tish James and her team start questioning Oliver North pursuant to that subpoena. Why? What are you so worried about in terms of Oliver North's testimony? One of the complicated legal fights that the N.R.A. finds itself in right now is a series of lawsuits and counter-lawsuits within the organization itself and between various parts of N.R.A. leadership and some of their vendors and former leaders. I mean, nobody's quite sure what exactly happened when Oliver North got forced out as the group's president earlier this year. Part of the reason it's been so hard to track this stuff is that everybody involved, honestly, is such a drama queen. I mean, Oliver North insisting he was a heroic whistleblower, uncovering terrible misbehavior at the N.R.A. And the N.R.A. insisting, oh, no, 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 Oliver North, you are an extortion artist and a con man. You are launching a failed coup. We're going to head off your coup at the last moment and off with your head, and we want to be cheered for pushing you out because that means we're awesome. I mean, honestly, junior high school has less drama in fights around the graduation dance than these guys have had with each other over the last few months. And of course, it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch. But whether or not you care about their drama and how they are or are not resolving things amongst themselves, what is it that Oliver North might say to the New York Attorney General that has the N.R.A. so freaked out that they want their own lawyers there for questioning? I don't know. I mean, whether or not all this drama engages you, whatever is going on at the NRA with all these guys, it has resulted over these last 4 months or so in just a cascade of terrible and increasingly damning and embarrassing revelations about what the NRA does, about what happens to the donations that they get from their members and their donors. It all started in April with this reporting in the New Yorker magazine, based on federal tax forms and charity records and contracts and corporate filings and internal communications, all of which were obtained by a reporter named Mike Spies. Quote, according to interviews and to documents that I obtained, a small group of NRA executives, contractors, and vendors have extracted hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, from the nonprofit's budget, from gratuitous payments, sweetheart deals, and opaque financial arrangements. Hundreds of millions of dollars? That article was published in mid-April in the New Yorker, and it seems to have gone off like a small sort of like depth charge inside NRA headquarters. I mean, not only was good old Oliver North ousted as president of the NRA amid a huge flurry of competing melodramatic assertions and accusations, but soon enough, this trickle of super embarrassing, very specific information started to flow out about what exactly the NRA spends its money on. When they persuade people to become members of the NRA or to donate money to them, when people buy, NRA swag, when people decide to hit that button online or respond to that direct mail thing or that telemarketer and give the NRA $10, $20, $100, we soon started to learn all the gritty details of what exactly the NRA has been spending all that money on. Within a week of that initial story in the New Yorker, we got this from the Wall Street Journal, indicating that for some reason, the NRA had set aside more than $200,000 of money from its donors to pay for a wardrobe for Wayne LaPierre, the CEO of the NRA. Within 2 weeks of that report, the Wall Street Journal had more. Turns out it was not just hundreds of thousands of dollars in outfits for Wayne LaPierre, it was also nearly $250,000 that the NRA had spent for him to go to a 5-star resort in Lake Como, Italy, and also to the Four Seasons in Budapest, and also on a really long, really nice trip to the Bahamas. Why were NRA members paying for that? In that report, we also got a little more detail on Wayne's outfits that the NRA was paying for. Quote, many of Mr. LaPierre's wardrobe expenses were incurred at a Beverly Hills, California store that sells clothing by the Italian luxury brand Ermenegildo. I don't know how to say the first name there. Zegna. I don't know how you say the first part of it. Bottom line, sorry, Wayne LaPierre was getting Italian designer suits, Zegna suits, at a boutique in Beverly Hills, which NRA members were paying for. When they bought their hats and shirts and stickers and stuff, you were buying Italian luxury suits for Wayne LaPierre from a Beverly Hills boutique. Within 2 weeks of that reporting, we could put an even finer point on that. If you want to understand how NRA members were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on one man's clothing, how do you even add up to that? In trying to do that math, it actually helps to know that that man could spend $39,000 in a single day on his clothing. At that one Beverly Hills clothing boutique, $39,000 for 1 day of shopping. Charge it to the members of the NRA. In that same Wall Street Journal report in mid-May, we also got details of how much NRA members have been paying, specifically for Wayne LaPierre's private jet costs. We don't actually have a total number in terms of how much the donor-funded and member-funded private jets added up to over time, but we do know that during one-month period, a one-month period that spanned from late 2012 into early 2013. So basically over the holiday period and the New Year's period in 2012 into 2013, in that 1 month, NRA members and donors paid more than $200,000 just for Wayne LaPierre's private jet expenses. Quote, in part related to a 2-week trip over Christmas to the Bahamas. Now, if you think back to what was going on around that time, that $200,000 that members of the NRA spent just for the air transportation costs for Wayne LaPierre to go to the Bahamas for 2 weeks around the holidays, that was, what was it, late 2012 into early 2013? So that would have been immediately after the elementary school massacre at Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut. That's what the NRA did in response. They spent $200,000 to send Wayne to the Bahamas. The Washington Post would later flesh out some of the further details about that. Apparently, Wayne and his wife charged that entire trip to the members and donors of the NRA. Where they stayed, apparently, was this island. Look, according to the Washington Post, it is known for its pink beaches. We did not Photoshop that. That's an actual pink beach. And you know, I'm sure members of the NRA who paid for that 2-week trip, plus the private jet fare to and from, I'm sure they would be happy to cough up extra to make sure that Wayne had pink sand on his beach, not just normal sand. Again, it was a very stressful time. Again, in addition to the private jets, though, there was more. There was also some interesting chauffeur expenses. Now, I mentioned the NRA and the NRA's members had been made to cough up more than thousands of dollars to put up the group's CEO at a five-star resort in Italy and at a Four Seasons hotel in Budapest. The Wall Street Journal was able to report in mid-May that on that trip, the Italy and Hungary trip, that trip also specifically included NRA members and donors paying more than $18,000 just for Wayne LaPierre to have a European chauffeur on that trip. $18,300 for his chauffeur on the European trip, all paid for by members of the NRA. So why has all this stuff been coming out? Like, at least every couple of weeks, often, once a week, sometimes one day after another, there's like another one of these revelations about what the NRA is doing with the money that it takes in donations and membership fees. All these revelations appear to be the product of whatever complex catfight is going on among these boys as they, sue each other and countersue each other and denounce each other and force each other out and declare victory. I mean, who actually knows what's going on in there among these fellows? But we're getting these revelations apparently because of the fight amongst them. And whether or not you care about the fight amongst them, bottom line is we're getting a ton of information. I mean, what's been revealed over this weird 4 or 5 month period is that the NRA, as legendary as it supposedly is for its wealth and its huge membership and its unparalleled sway in Washington, I mean, they really are spending all their donors' money on like Italian suits and private jet trips and awesome resorts. Just within the past couple of weeks, yet more new reporting from the Wall Street Journal has taken it to an even more ridiculous level, with the revelation that as recently as last year, the NRA had been pursuing the prospect of buying Wayne LaPierre a 10,000 square foot mansion. Now, this is not like shaming Wayne LaPierre as a rich guy who wants to live in a big house. Who cares where Wayne LaPierre wants to live? The issue here is that this was the NRA using money from their donors and members to set Wayne LaPierre up in this 10,000 square foot mansion that he and his wife picked out in Texas. Have you seen the pictures? Here's the view as you first come up the drive. And yeah, you might think that's the front of the house, but no, false front. That's just the front of the house that opens onto the formal courtyard, which is where the real magic begins. Here's like sort of a view of the main room. Here's the kitchen with gold fittings on the stove. Also see the fireplace in the kitchen. Behold what would have been Wayne's master suite. This is a bathroom where I believe you could get really, really clean. Here's the men's closet area. In case you get exhausted in your closet, you can freshen up. This closet area is just for the man. It's separate from a whole nother closet area. And you should stick a pin in that for a moment because, as you can tell, this kind of closet space is wholly inadequate for somebody like Wayne. Here's the gym. We've got a photo of the gym. Here is, I think, where you punish kids when they're bad. Here's where you go when you're bad. Here's a detail on the antique marble fireplace. Here's the, I think they call this an outdoor room, where if you don't want to look at the lake or at the golf course, you can look at the TV. Here's another view of the lake from the hot tub. Here's the full employment program area for topiary cutters. Here's the view of the house from the lake. Gives you a little sense of the scale. But I think this drone shot really gives you the full appreciation. Just feast your eyes on that for a second. If you have an uncle who's really wound up about gun rights, and so he paid his hard-earned money and he joined the NRA thinking this was a good way to protect his gun rights. I mean, this is the kind of thing that the NRA has been doing with his money. The NRA, when this was first reported, initially denied that this whole mansion thing had anything to do with them. Not a cent of NRA money went toward this house. And it is true that this house ultimately did not get bought. You can still buy it today if you would like to. I have to tell you, it has 9 bathrooms, so you're going to need to invest in, a lot of bathroom stuff. 9 bathrooms? There's 4 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms. That means if you put a person in every bedroom, each of those people gets their own bathroom plus another one, and then there's a spare. 9 bathrooms. After the initial denials by the NRA to the Wall Street Journal that they had anything to do with this, the Washington Post was able to ferret out some more details about what actually happened here. Quote, LaPierre and his wife were intensely involved in the selection of the property, rejecting an upscale high-rise in Dallas in favor of a 10,000-square-foot estate with lakefront and golf course views in Texas, on the market for about $6 million. The couple wanted to secure a social membership at the exclusive golf club in the gated community as well. They also sought the purchase of 2 vehicles and to keep the current owner's golf cart, if possible. Now, it wasn't all roses. One aspect of the property that concerned Mrs. LaPierre was the lack of space in the men's closet in the master bedroom. The Washington Post actually got the email attesting to that. Quote, the men's master bedroom and bathroom need some changes. There's not much closet space. Yeah, not if you're spending $39,000 a day at a Beverly Hills suit boutique. Quote, the discussions about the estate, which was not ultimately purchased, are under scrutiny by New York investigators. The transaction was slated to be made through a corporate entity that received a $70,000 wire from the NRA in 2018. Hold on a minute. I thought the NRA said they didn't spend a dime. The actual check, there it is, the $70,000 check, was published in the newspaper less than a week later by the Wall Street Journal. Now, as this story kept trickling out and kept outpacing their denials, the NRA got more and more wound up in their denials about the mansion. Quote, not one dime of the NRA's money was spent on this venture. Okay, fine. But then the day after the Wall Street Journal published the $70,000 NRA check for the mansion, we found out where the rest of the money to buy the mansion was slated to come from as well. Quote, a top NRA executive signed a document agreeing that the NRA would be a 99% owner of a company formed to buy a $6 million Dallas mansion for NRA CEO Wayne LaPierre. That's according to a copy of the document reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. The document also shows the NRA agreed to contribute $6.5 million to that company that was being formed to buy the property. Quote, this raises yet more questions about the NRA's previous statements that none of the NRA's money was to be used to purchase the house for Mr. LaPierre. And now today, inevitably, there's more. I mean, at this point, it's embarrassing to even, say this stuff, right? But the Daily Beast got this story today. Quote, the NRA spent tens of thousands of dollars bringing hair and makeup artists around the country for the wife of its CEO. The expenses included plane flights and luxury hotel stays for Wayne's wife's stylists. Whatever you think of the NRA, maybe you're a member of the NRA, or you know somebody who is. I have NRA members in my own extended family. I mean, whether or not you know anybody who belongs to the group or gives them money, I mean, you've definitely seen those little, NRA member stickers in the back of people's cars and trucks and stuff. Now you know that every time you see one of those, you can just hold it in your heart a little bit. The fact that what that person's NRA membership dues went toward, what their donation to the NRA went toward, was Wayne's wife's stylists being flown all over the country to accompany her for her public events, hair and makeup. The stylists also got airfare and hotels, in addition to being paid for their services for Wayne's wife, all paid for by NRA members and donors. Also Pink Sand Bahamas vacations, also the initial payments on what they almost bought here for Wayne and his wife, if only it had had enough closet space for his Italian suit wardrobe, which your NRA member buddy also paid for with his or her donation. NRA fundraising appeals are always a portrait of desperation. Right? Stop the NRA shutdown. Please give as generously as you can. Help save the NRA. The NRA cannot survive without your help right now. As you well know, gun haters have tried for decades to destroy your gun rights. The NRA cannot survive right now without your help. Save the NRA. Contribute by phone. I mean, when they use lines like that to get gun owners to part with their hard-earned money, we now know what those membership dollars actually fund. And this is important whether or not you care about the NRA, right? This is important for the country because, I mean, once again, we are having another serious moment as a country where, in revulsion after more mass shootings, we're thinking seriously about the prospects for gun policy reform. I mean, we're heading into a presidential election season, and there's a reason that Democrats are feeling their oats on this issue. Heading into a presidential election season, it, in fact, is hard to ignore that such huge majorities of the public, like 90% majorities of the public, actually do want something like universal background checks nationwide in order for anybody to be able to buy a gun. There have been recent reports that the NRA, and specifically Wayne LaPierre, have been whispering in President Trump's ear, telling him directly, oh no, you can't support background checks. You said you liked background checks? That was a mistake. You definitely can't support that. That'll look terrible for you if you support that. And, you know, okay, that's to be expected when it comes to the NRA. But now, after these 4 or 5 months about what we have learned from the NRA, now we know that advice is coming from the guy who everybody knows has been using his members' money to try to buy himself 10,000 square foot mansions and to fly his wife's hair and makeup artists all over the country whenever she wants them. I mean, it has been an amazing few months in terms of revelations about this supposedly all-powerful group. Well, now, new trouble. And that story's next. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.